So Cape Town is abuzz ahead of the opening of Parliament expected tonight. President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver his address against the backdrop of a rainy and gloomy day in a scaled-back ceremony as he unveils the government's plans for the 7th administration. SABC News, of course, has a full team watching developments for you in Cape Town. Let's take you there now live, where we join the rest of our team in the build-up to what is going to unfold today. And of course, much of the focus as we continue building up to 7 o'clock is around expectations, Mpho.
Yeah, absolutely. And a very good morning to you once again. Of course, not so rainy and gloomy anymore. Looking like the skies are clearing up, which is a good sign. Then we get a chance to see what will happen on the red carpet. And of course, as we continue to build up to the opening of Parliament address, we have various reporters stationed in key and central areas across the country as we look to hear what people are expecting to hear come 7 o'clock Central Africa time this evening. We take you now live to our reporter Ulrich Hendricks, who's out in the Northern Cape. Ulrich, a very good morning to you. Expectations are high, more so if we look at the hopes around economic development and jobs. What do you have for us?
Hi, good morning, Paul, and welcome to the Northern Cape, of course, here in the province. People, very high joblessness rate, so a lot of people are hoping that with the new government of national unity and the plans they have for the economy, that will bring a lot of jobs. But we are here also, if you remember, it's Mandela Day, so it's people doing their bit, 67 minutes for, to do good for another person. And today we at Schuchureng Old Age Home in Khalishiwe, where the army is, of course, refurbishing this old age home. It was quite dilapidated. But let's speak to Brigadier General Leon Pukri. He's, of course, the ranking officer at the moment. So you decided to refurbish this old age home. Why and what have you done?
Good morning, Ulrich, as well as your viewers. And let me greet our Chief of the South African Army in absentia, as well as the Chief of the South African National Defence Force, General Rodzani Mapanya. We have started this project in 2022. The South African Army goes out on an initiative of social outreach under the banner and under the command and leadership of the Chief of the South African Army right throughout the country. 2022, the Northern Cape Schuchureng Old Age Home, Elderly Home, was chosen to be refurbished and to bring up the standards, the living conditions, and for the members and the residents of this home. We have fortunately and successfully, through the interaction between stakeholders as well as the local municipality and the local legislature, joined hands in doing this. Today we've just come back to commemorate the principles and let's say the ethics built into the South African democracy by our late president and the father of the nation, President Mandela. And as celebrating this, we want to be amongst the elderly in order for us to portray this and not to make it a once-off event. It shouldn't be that. Because I think the principles and the ethics behind the president, our ex-president, was that humanity does not happen in 20 seconds or 67 minutes. It is a continuous effort. And as the South African Army, we believe and understand that we have a social right and obligation to fulfill some of our obligations extensionally to the wider population of South Africa and the citizens of South Africa.
So today's the opening of Parliament. We know all the pomp and ceremony. You had the pleasure of serving under the first Commander-in-Chief, Nelson Mandela. Yeah. Just throw us back a bit, just a short little piece about how it was serving under him.
Yeah, well, structurally we didn't really serve directly under the Commander-in-Chief. And growth-wise, we started a career in 1996, and for me it is a honor to be serving the new dispensation of South Africa, the transformative constitution that we are faced with. And as military professionals, we do understand that civil oversight of us is important. And in doing our civil duties, we're not only here to protect the sovereignty of the South African nation, but also to be actively involved with the citizens of South Africa, as well as make sure that we can play our part in making certain social injustices and inequalities come to a standstill and contribute the least or the most that we can as an organization of state.
Thank you very much, Brigadier General. Of course, the people who are the beneficiaries of this from the army is the Shugerang home. Tell us, how do you feel about the refurbishment that the army has made for the home?
Thanks for giving me this opportunity to say about the feeling of the elderly people in Sultwaring Old Age Home. They are so excited because the previous years this facility was so dilapidated. Then the army identified the place and they come and refurbish it. So the elderly people are so very, very happy about what had taken place because they were crying for it. Now the place has been turned to a living area.
So today is the opening of Parliament. Of course, the President will basically say, give the government's plans for the next year. In terms of pensioners, old age people, what would you like him to basically speak to, around pensioners and people of advanced age?
What I would like to hear from the President's side, the elderly people must have an office in his office. And also within the 9 provinces, you must have a desk from the Premier's offices. The reason being, there are some of the issues that we are raising as NPO to the social development party. At the end of the day, it's not been attended to. So if someone is there when the President is doing any announcement, he can put the input and the problem of the elderly people, then those things can be addressed without wasting any time.
Thank you very much, sir. Of course, talking about what they expect from the President today in his address at the opening of Parliament, talking about how they would like to have more direct linkage with the presidency and with the various premiers in the 9 provinces, having an office similar to the Department of Disabled People, Women, etc. So they would like an office for people of old age, pensioners, advanced age, etc. Well, that is all we have from Kimberley, Northern Cape. Let's link you to my colleague, Tumelo Machoka.
Well, thank you so much, Ulrich. We are here in Mbombela at one of the taxi rank, one of the busiest taxi rank here in Mbombela, where this taxi rank is actually a hive of activities with a lot of people going about their days, actually going to different areas and also to different provinces also, and also to different areas. But we've been speaking to community members since yesterday. They've been telling us here in Mbombela and also across the province here in Mpumalanga, telling us that they want the President to address issues of service delivery, especially in their communities and especially in rural communities where service delivery has been hampered by a lot of things. They are saying that the roads are riddled with potholes. They are saying that a lot of rubbish are not being collected in their areas, but also communities where the communities are also talking about housing, saying that they want housing, they want also like employment and also job opportunities to be addressed to them. But let's speak to people here at the taxi rank just to hear their expectations about what they can expect from the President tonight. May I just talk to us, May Sweetness, just talk to us about when I ufuna kuti President address, especially tonight, my address at the country.
Okay, mina ngifuna ukuthi President address namuhla ngifuna akhulume nge gender based violence kubantwana nabomake, ukuhlukunyezwa kwabomake nebantwana. ngoba bomake siyabulawa bayabulawa umthetho ufuna uthathe inzima yawo ube nesheziso lesibonakalayo ngoba kondeka konke lokhu because umthetho ngathi awukacini awuthathi inzima yawo lebonakalayo. That is why nyalo umuntu akutshela ukuthi utokubulala hambe ayokutokela abuye. So sicela ukuthi kube namuhla uma addressa speech sakhe kube nalokho senjengoba ngimile so ni akuphiza khulume nangama small business ngimthengisi njengoba ngimela iplaza ngigcoke ifast code sifuna kwathi ukuthi njengoba namhla akhuluma ngema small business thine singomake bekuthengisa ama hawkers ukuthi thine sisitaka kanjani ibudget siyithola kanjani because nyalo sekugcwele abantu abachamuka kakhulu ngaphandle asisana business konke lesikwendako nje iprofit kude asisatholi lutho siyapheka simuke nekudla kube ngiloko nje akutholakala ukuthi kwendekani sicela ukuthi sibe nebudget yethu uma yena addressa namuhla asithulele ibudget yethu singma hawkers singma small business.
And also just talk to us about maybe ama issues alinayo emphakathini ubunjalo uhlala eKanyamazane ngitshela ukuthi ama issues alinayo eKanyamazane anjani.
Okay, mina ngihlala eTonga eNkomazi. Ma issues lesinawo icrime migwaco yethu ayikho kahle especially njengemgwaco losuka erenkini eTonga uya esibhedlela eTonga umgwaco lo hamba ama ambulance lo kakhulu but the way ungakhona ngathi igravel lehamba tinkomo akubonakala lapho noma kuthi sebabuya kulanza ipatient ekhaya umuntu ogulako kufuna ahambe kulomgwaco lo ma street ethu especially Nkomazi akekho right lapha eTonga especially lomgwaco uma sibuda kumaspara usilayitela public works ushitshela maspara asathi ukuthi kufuna sikhale kuphi.
All right. I'm just going to try and translate quickly what she just said. She just said that they want the president tonight to address issues of gender-based violence, saying that, you know, there's a lot of crime and also women are being targeted and also being killed, and also that they want harsh punishment for people that actually commit crimes, especially when it comes to gender-based violence, saying that they're also as small businesses, because she's one of the small business owner here. She also ran a business here at the taxi rank, saying that they want government to start assisting them, helping them in making sure that, you know, they grow their businesses, because they're saying that they are struggling as small businesses, especially in this area and especially in the taxi ranks. Let's also speak to this lady. When President address tonight,
mina ngimesi ngihlala la eMbombela engifisa ukuthi upresident uma addressa namuhla addresse kakhulu indzaba yabantwana nabomali bayabulawa kakhulu eMbombela kuyashiswa abantu abadzala kuyashiswa bogogo bayahlukunyetwa asinamandi asinamigwaco sihambe emaphanchisini kuba mnyama nasibuye emsebentini sibuya kumnyama asathi kude laba siprotectako cela ukuthi nemaphoyisa ala eMbombela nawo angedwe akhona ukuthi apatrol uma sehle emabhasini sikhona ukuthi sibe safe nebantwa bethu babe safe babuye etikolweni bantwana abasi safe.
To speaking to us, she is talking about safety, saying that they want safety in their community, saying that they want police to be patrolling areas, because when they come back home, especially at night, because when they go to their areas, there's no electricity, the roads are terrible, they are riddled with potholes, saying that they want those things to be addressed, and saying that service delivery must be addressed, but saying in particular, saying that, you know, issues of gender-based violence must be addressed, because there's been a number of issues, especially in this area in Mpumalanga, where we have seen children and women. She was talking about women and the elderly that are being killed, that are also being children that are also being killed, saying that they want those issues to be addressed, that the police must also work very hard to ensure that they address those issues. Let's speak to one gentleman also. Just talk to us, Wanantate, what do you want the president to address tonight when he speaks to the nation, especially with now that there's a new government of national unity? What do you think of is going to be happening with what do you want him to address tonight?
Okay. What we are thinking the president must tell us, firstly, is about electricity. Secondly, is about the road. And then we remember when they was making a statement when before the election, there was a lot of promises that were made all the political leaders. So we need a president to hear about what the promises that they were made, they are fixing or not.
And then what are the issues that you guys are faced with? And especially, I know you talked about roads and all those kind of things, but what are the other issues that people are actually talking about, especially here in Mbombela area?
In Mbombela area, we don't have the services in Mbombela, so we need also to hear what the president thinking about the Mbombela self, because in Mbombela a lot of things are not right. The crime is too high. Every day people are dying. So yeah, most of the things that we want the president to hear from is about the crime, especially, yes.
Okay, thank you so much for speaking to us. You know, these are some of the residents that have just been raising concerns. So, you know, they're talking about crime, they're talking about service delivery, and they're also talking about the roads that are terrible. And especially here in Mpumalanga, we have seen a lot of people complain about these issues. But these are some of the issues that the residents of Mbombela that we have been speaking to here at the taxi rank are talking about, saying that they want service delivery to be addressed. They want the president to ensure that, you know, they tackle the issues of service delivery and also the issue of crime. They're talking about crime, saying crime is also gone out of hand. They also want the crime to be addressed. We're going to hand it over to our colleagues in Cape Town.
Right, thank you very much. Of course, the build-up continues here outside the City Hall as we take you to the leading developments ahead of the opening of Parliament address happening this evening at 7 o'clock sharp. But as we get you there, we now roping in political analyst Sandang Washeng just to give you a sense of some of the expectations, urgent interventions, of course, needed to bring change to South Africans. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me.
It's a big day, isn't it, as we take stock of the composition of the Government of National Unity and the expectations, whether or not there will be delivery. We've heard throughout the course of this morning how service delivery is really at the center of what South Africans want.
Well, I mean, I think if you listen to some of what was coming out of the cabinet, Lekotla, there was an emphasis on coming back to or focusing more on the district distribution model as a way to strengthen local government. We know that where people are really upset at South Africa and what has happened with the political state is at the level of the local, where you're not getting the water you're supposed to get, the electricity is not coming on when you're supposed to put it on, people can't access schools because even the admissions process is quite a nightmare to navigate for parents. And so there's a lot that needs local government to work. And the fact that politicians like placing their weakest politicians at local government level instead of placing the strongest politicians and then having a mix of people in parliament. What's of course most interesting is that we are potentially seeing a shift in the role that Parliament plays. So Parliament, you know, of course there were accusations when it was ANC majority that it was a rubber stamping place rather than a place of debate. But we may see a reduction in debate because you've got all of those political parties that are within the GNU who will be having these discussions before actually going to Parliament. And so what does that mean for the role of Parliament as a place of debate and the role of even the committees if a lot of the people who are going to be leading, for instance, Rise Mzansi is going to be leading Scopa, but they're also part of the GNU. How are they going to manage that? And, you know, earlier we were at the Nelson Mandela Legacy exhibition, and I was just looking at some of the posters from the 90s and the things that people were complaining about, asking for housing, asking for affordable rentals, and, you know, demanding for fair working conditions for farm workers. These are issues that still sit with us, and these are issues that people are still complaining about today. So it was a bit sad to look at that and to see that, you know, 30 years, more than 30 years later, Mandela has been freed and we've got this freedom, but people are still struggling with the same issues. Of course, it doesn't mean that nothing has happened and we haven't done anything or nothing good has been done, but it just means that there is the legacy of apartheid and the legacy of the delegation of black people in townships, in particular black rural areas, as the dustbins of society that still needs to be dealt with. And I'm really concerned about whether government understands the kind of hard work it's going to have to do, particularly around the issue of jobs, and the fact that if that doesn't work, the time bomb won't be ticking anymore, it will go off. And so we are really in a potential state of crisis when it comes to youth unemployment. So if they could really prioritize that, that would really be good for them. But otherwise, it's going to be interesting to see how different political parties embody their different roles. DA no longer in opposition, but now part of the government. What does that mean? What does that look like? EFF and MK and the other political parties taking up the opposition role. What does that mean and what does that look like? And so it's going to be interesting even to hear what the president has to say are the priority areas, because they've said they're going to focus on using the National Development Plan as their kind of guideline. And my question around that is, the National Development Plan hasn't worked. You know, everybody has been very candid about the fact that it hasn't worked. It hasn't done what it's supposed to do. The district distribution model, it's a great model conceptually, but it hasn't been implemented in the ways that it needs to be implemented. And so there's going to have to be a lot of work to move from the conceptual and the documents that we have to actual implementation. Because South Africa has an amazing constitution, amazing policies, but the people on the ground are not living what the constitution promises, are not living what, you know, these policies promise. And so while, you know, some people do live and do access and are living literally Mandela's dream, there aren't enough people who are living it. And so this is the conundrum, and this is the tough job that this united government, and hopefully they'll be united for the whole 5 years, is going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and that unity is an important aspect that you raise, more so as we now consider the kind of leadership role that President Cyril Ramaphosa will need to take on, and really just factoring in the various interests from the political parties, part of the Government of National Unity. We're going to continue this discussion. Asanda Ngwasheng, their political analyst, just laying the ground, giving us a sense of some of the hopes and dreams and some of the letdowns. I mean, is the National Development Plan going to be useful and effective, as it's the bedrock, but has failed to deliver? We do continue to rope in our reporters who are stationed in key roles, just bringing you the reaction on the ground as South Africans look this evening for some big changes and, of course, effective changes. Abra Barbara standing by here in Cape Town to give us a sense of what is happening on that end as we build up to the opening of Parliament address. Abra, what do you have?
I am going to be speaking to various political parties, of course, just to get their expectations. They have been speaking to the media over the past few days, but we are going to be just asking them again to reiterate what it is that they would like to hear the president say today as he outlines government's plan for the next few years. And first up, I have Mr. Wayne Thring of the ACDP. Sir, thank you so much for making your way through the storms to be with us this morning. I know the House only sits at 7 o'clock, so we appreciate you coming in this early. Sir, the ACDP, is there anything specific that you want to hear? I mean, your colleague Steve Swart said something so profound, I think, in the police debate the other day, because lots of people were complaining about we don't have enough police on the ground, and Mr. Swart said something along the lines of each South African actually needs to be able to police him and herself through self-control and to take care of the environment around them. Is there anything on, I know police isn't your portfolio, but is there anything specific in the criminal justice system that you would like to hear the president speak about today?
Well, certainly I think that of the many things that we would like to hear the president speak on, one of them is actually the issue of crime. And I think with the issue of crime, many of our communities, whether you talk about the community that I serve in, which is the Marinridge community, you went with Kwamashu and Tuzuma, you talk about the Cape Flats areas which are riddled with crime and in particular drugs, we would like to see a concrete plan in terms of how the president would want to and how the president is going to address the issue of crime and particularly drugs that is so pervasive within our communities and how that's going to be addressed. Many of the communities actually feel captive. They feel captive by those who are peddling drugs, captive by some of the police whom they tell us are seen to be collecting from the drug lords themselves and are in a sense complicit to the deaths that take place and the many homes and lives that are actually destroyed. So I think that we want to see as the ACDP a concrete plan from the President in terms of an overall, how are we going to address crime, bearing in mind that over 70 people are murdered in South Africa every day. Over 130 women are raped in South Africa every day. So our crime statistics is not something for us to be smiling about. In fact, we should all be hanging our heads in shame because of the horrendous crime statistics that South Africa actually has. So I think very clearly crime is one of the key aspects that the ACDP would like to see the President address. But I think secondly, and perhaps also just as important, is the aspect of the economy. In our looking at our 2.3 trillion budget that we have, national budget that we have a deficit on that budget of some 300 billion rand. But also bearing in mind that we have a debt to GDP of some 74%. That debt to GDP is over 5 trillion rand. Another 300 billion rand deficit added to the 5 trillion rand. What is being created is generational debt. So South Africa is actually heading for a fiscal crisis. South Africa, the current government has actually overborrowed, and they are creating what the ACDP calls generational debt for our children and our grandchildren. This is unacceptable. And so we would like to see the President speaks very often about reforms and structural reforms in order to get the economy going. But in the view of the ACDP, that has just been lip service. We would like to see the practical implementation of structural reforms. What structural reform actually says is look at the current policies that government has. Are those policies working? If they are not working, change them, reform them. That is structural reform. And in the view of the ACDP, there are also some of the race-based policies that some of your institutions like Cambridge who have indicated that our race-based policies in South Africa are actually a hindrance to economic growth. And so looking at the challenges that we have, so one is, the second is the economy. So we're looking at crime, we're looking at the economy. And then I think we have a challenge with regards to unemployment. On the score of unemployment, we have some 32% of South Africans, 32.9% of South Africans unemployed, 41% on the expanded definition of unemployment, and we also have 44 up to 50%, depending on whose statistics that you actually believe, of youth unemployment. Is completely unacceptable. We have one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, with the highest Gini coefficient, inequality rate, also in the world. And so when it comes to structural reform and reform-based policies, the ACDP would like to see some concrete ideas on what the President is going to do in terms of these structural reforms. I think in addition, we are also seeing, we've been busy with our debates within the committees, and almost every committee is complaining about budget cuts. And budget cuts also now speak to, and the budget cuts are because of South Africa's over-borrowing and this deficit that we have and the debt to GDP of over 5 trillion. And now we are paying the price for the ANC's over-borrowing, and budget cuts and austerity measures are being put in place. So this is going to impact service delivery, and it's going to be interesting to see what the President is going to do in terms of the Cabinet in overcome the challenges that we have with regards to austerity measures.
Mr. Wayne Thing of the ACDP, thank you so much for speaking with us. Thank you for your time. I'm now going to be speaking with the ANC Chief Whip, Mr. Mdumiseni Ntuli. Sir, can I ask you to join me over here, please? Thank you so much for speaking to us today. I don't know if you heard anything that your colleague from the ACDP said about the ANC's overborrowing and the financial state that the country finds itself in. Is there anything in terms of finances that you would like to hear the President speak about today, bearing in mind our grey listing status, the corruption, our high borrowing rates? Is there anything along those lines that you think he should be putting on the table just to give South Africans some calm when it comes to the state of the economy in the country?
Well, thank you very much. Good morning to you and good morning to the viewers at home. I think even before I come to that question, it's an important day today, which is Nelson Mandela International Day. And I want to join the millions of our people around the country and the world to pay tribute to that outstanding son of our country, a preeminent leader, the founding father of our young democracy, President Nelson Mandela. for the contribution that he and his generations have done to bring about the democratic dispensation that we enjoy today. And surely there is no doubt in our minds as the African National Congress that that democracy has come with its own new sets of challenges which we have to respond to. One of those challenges which we outline in the manifesto of the ANC is that we've got to find a way to put South Africa back at work because of the state of our economy, which for some time over the past almost a decade has not been in good shape in a way that allowed the absorption of the new entrants into the economy, and let alone in ensuring that the economy grows in order to overcome the legacy that we are contending with of colonialism and apartheid. So we would expect the president today, among other things, to reflect on the programmatical areas which are going to be led by the ANC-led national government to respond first and foremost to the urgent task of rebuilding our economy. Because you can't do anything and succeed in this country and elsewhere in the world unless you have a capacity to rebuild, reposition your economy in such a way that it allows you to generate the resources that are required to overcome the challenges that we're facing today.
So I think we've heard a lot about programs and plans and policies, but I think what South Africans are looking for is action. Is that something that we can start looking forward to with the GNU?
Look, I'm quite certain that the outcomes of the elections on the 29th of May have communicated a particular message about what the South Africans are feeling, about the way in which their own government has been working over time. And I suppose that even those that may have been caught up in their level of complacence would have understood that these elections are conveying a particular message about the need to work in a way that one can say, if I were to use the words of President Thabo Mbeki, business unusual. We have got to take a different approach in terms of how we're going to do or approach this whole task of governance in the current dispensation. And I think for us in the ANC, it's even more important that there is a turnaround, not just in terms of the policy orientation, even on the quality of leadership that government exercises in society. We don't want to see what we've been condemned to, where departments will have a difficulty to spend their own budget, up to a point where by the end of a financial year, you've got a department that has not finished its own budget, while you are faced with major challenges on the ground. Because some of the issues are not necessarily about the policy direction. It's about the way in which government works, the way in which those who are entrusted with the responsibility in the executive and the director generals understand and appreciate the urgent task that they have to effectively respond.
On that point, actually, the way government works, I know we have clusters, so departments are supposed to be working together, but that's often where the stumbling blocks are, is because there's not proper cohesion between the various departments. For instance, crime. SAPS will always say we've arrested so many guys or so many criminals, but our morale is low because when the cases go to court, the next day the guys are out. So there's like a lot of talk about there's not cohesion. And obviously that's where Parliament comes in. You have to help departments find each other. Is that something you think you're going to be focusing on as well?
It's going to be very central to our work. As on my other role as the head of election in the ANC, one of the problems that we've had to contend with leading to the elections was a lack of coordination at a vertical and horizontal level within government. Vertical in a sense that you would have one government department. Let me give you an example about the issue of electricity and transformers in Gauteng and elsewhere in the country, where the government will decide. The department will say, we've got to do this thing in this way, but the other department does not come on board in a way that is showing a coordination. The same applies as well in terms of the vertical approach of how the government works. So there is an integration that President Ramaphosa will have to take the country, lead the country into to ensure that government respond effectively to the aspirations of our people.
Chief Whip, thank you so much for your time. I'll catch up with you later on after the President's speech. Well, that was the Chief Whip of the ANC, Mr. Ntuli, of course, speaking about cohesion between departments and that between various government departments. And that, of course, is something that is going to be key going forward in terms of how the GNU actually implements the various policies that the President will be speaking about today. I'm going going back to you in the studio now, I think.
Very well. Of course, thank you very much. That is more of what we're giving you on the ground, the reaction in the build-up to the opening of Parliament address this evening at 7 p.m. And a lot has been said around some of the expectations on concrete ideas on structural reforms, a lot said about service delivery and the residents and community members, South Africans, pinning their hopes on the outcome and the effectiveness of the opening of Parliament address. With that said, Ayanda Nyati, we come back to you. I understand that the funeral service of former Bafana Bafana coach Stanley Screamer Shabalala underway in Soweto.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. Mpho Tole, part of our team, live there from Cape Town, just outside the City Hall. Thanks very much indeed. Our build-up, of course, to the opening of Parliament will continue for much of the day. So stick around on the SABC News channel as we bring you all those different sentiments across a number of sectors in society.